Good morning, everyone. As you all are coming in, we're going to give people just a few minutes to get in the room. Enjoy your coffee, maybe a side of pancakes as we're getting everybody in. I would remind everyone to mute yourselves. Most of you I've seen on several calls and you're pros at this, but as you're entering, if you'll just keep yourselves on mute, that would be great. Good to see some smiling faces this morning. And as y'all are coming in, I would invite you to meet Dr. Morrison Shetler with University of Lynchburg. She is our new president. Wave, Allison, if you will. It is so good to have you in Lynchburg. We'll be doing a meet and greet for Allison in the next couple weeks, so you'll get a chance to hear from her. She'll have the stage, if you will, but we're so glad to have you, Allison. Just getting a couple more people in here. All right, let's see. Good morning. All right, everyone. Well, we have a full agenda this morning, so I'm going to go ahead and get us started, and I'll ask our staff if you'll keep watching the chat room and helping me let people in. We'll go ahead and get started. I do want to welcome everyone today. Also want to thank our sponsors this morning. Our signature partner is First National Bank. I know we got some First National folks on. You guys can wave. Thank you all for your partnership this morning. Our corporate partners, Liberty University, Property One Photography. We also have Kroger, which is our gift card partner. And if you recall, when you registered, although we're not serving you breakfast this morning like we normally do for business at breakfast, we thought this would be a great way to give back to our retailers and our restaurants that have had, let's say, a rough spring and start of their summer. So all of you all that registered and paid for this morning, you guys are going to get a gift card to one of our amazing restaurants. So want to thank Kroger for that. I know we have Allison somewhere on the call. I don't see her on my screen. It must be on my second page, but Allison with Kroger, thank you. And Kroger's doing an amazing job during all of this. And I also want to thank Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A donated some gift cards. So some of you guys are going to be getting a Chick-fil-A gift card, and I know we all appreciate, I mean, I could eat Chick-fil-A every day. I don't know about y'all. So I want to give a shout out to them. In terms of format for this morning, we are going to have each of our schools is going to give a briefing. They have received an email with the most frequently asked questions that we're getting on behalf of our employers and our community leaders, as well as some citizens, as we're out talking with folks. So they're going to start with their plans, and some of these are literally hot off the press from last night and their school board meetings. Our staff will be managing the chat room. We'll be looking for the questions that you all may have. We're going to go through each school system and then we'll open it up for questions. Feel free to post a question in the chat. If it's for a specific school system or specific to maybe you and your children, one of the administrators may answer that offline or in the chat. If it's for everyone, obviously we'll ask that and make sure that you guys have the benefit of hearing the response to that. If we do not get through all the questions after this is over with, we will copy and paste those questions to a document and send that to all of our administrators. Get some responses to those and make sure that you as attendees get the responses to those. But hopefully we're going to be punctual on our time and we'll get through all those. I will also post in the chat, we have some upcoming events. We'll post our event calendar in the chat room so that if you want to know about some of our upcoming events, we've got some great stuff coming up. Commerce and Cocktails is tomorrow afternoon with a beverage demo, not for children, obviously. But the next week we have our Women, Wine, and Wisdom, and we just launched our Emerge Virtual Women's Summit registration, and anybody that registers by next Thursday gets a free t-shirt. So we'll post that in the chat, the event calendar, and we hope to see many of you at our upcoming virtual events. Okay, before we start with our schools, we do want to recognize our new members that are with us this morning. And our new member partner is Member One Federal Credit Union, and Jessica Clarkson with Member One, as well as her lovely children, because I know they're in the background.
No, I actually bribed the older one to take the younger one and go play.
That's good. Jessica, if I've asked her to say a few words and then to introduce our new members so you guys can meet our new members, and then she'll turn it back over to me and we'll start with our schools. So Jessica, welcome.
Great. Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for having us. Looking forward to hearing from all of our superintendents. I kind of like this virtual format because I don't have to worry about tripping on my way up to the podium like I do when we're meeting over at the summit. So I'm Jessica Clarkson. I'm the Vice President of Market Relationship Manager over at Member One Federal Credit Union. Quick word about us right now. Of course, we still have our online banking available in our call center. If you want to do in-person banking, you can do that over at our Timberlake location. So we are available in person to serve you over at our Timberlake location. So I'm going to introduce our new members this morning. If you're a new member, when I call your name, if you could just give us a wave and then give us a brief intro of you and your business. So I'll go ahead and start with Alexander Jackson with Woodman Life.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on. Good to see you all this morning. My name is Alexander Jackson. I'm with Woodman Life. I specialize in life insurance protection, retirement savings planning, and Medicare supplements. And so we're a little bit different as an insurance company. Since we're not for profit, what we're able to do is use what would be profits and give some of those back to our members in the form of benefits and return of premiums. And so some of that looks like natural disaster benefits, scholarships for kids, things like that. So really excited to be a part of the Alliance now. And so thanks for having me on this morning.
Thank you. All right, Tracy Jansen with Philanthropy Lynchburg.
Don't know that I see Tracy, Jessica.
Okay. Well, we'll move along to Eddie Archer with Raspberry Hill Adult Daytime Center.
I'm looking.
Okay, you scope it out for me.
Nope, don't see. Heath is saying no.
Okay. Benton Penn Financial Group, Mass Mutual.
Yeah, we have, I know there are some, Jessica, the rest on your list just need to be recognized. They're not on the call this morning. So if you just want to read off their names.
Perfect. Mark Miller with the UPS store. Mark Sisson with Nanotouch Materials, Stephen Fallin with Southern Works Hair Studio, Rick Small with Buffalo Wild Wings, and then a new member is Mardell Christian Bookstore. So thanks to all our new members, and Member One is proud to sponsor you.
Thanks, Jessica. Okay, so without further ado, we are going to start with Dr. Rob Arnold, and Rob is the Superintendent of Amherst County High Schools. So Dr. Arnold, the floor is yours. Mute.
I've done that a million times now. So thank you, Christine, for inviting us and allowing us some time to lay out our plans and some of our hurdles and things that we're trying to deal with. I believe I have 10 minutes, and so our plans are so detailed and so many moving pieces. There's no way that you're going to get the full scope of this in 10 minutes. So I just want to start with how we kind of got it together in late May. It was pretty clear that we needed to start to put a document together. I put a task force together. We had about 70 school community members on it. We wanted to get as much representation on it as possible. And then we went out and did some Zoom town halls, surveying of parents, surveying of community, and then took all of that information back and put together our plan, which we gave to our school board on July 9th. And then we put it out to the public on July 10th, and then spent all last week doing Q&A sessions on Zoom. And then Monday we had a board retreat so they could kind of really dig into it, and they approved it on Monday. And so in all of that conversations, because one of the things I think that's helped us, we've had real positive feedback on our plan, and I think part of it is because of the communication. I keep saying the same things over and over and over again, but I think over communicating to our community and our staff and our students is the only way we're going to get this right. So we feel really good about how it's been rolled out. One of the things that we thought about as we put the plan together is that we have so many differing opinions on what is right and what is not right. And so we have parents that would send their kids back tomorrow, right? They would be back tomorrow, full go. We have other parents that will not send their children back until there's a vaccine. And that's very difficult to make all of those people happy in this situation. So we kept going back to these common beliefs that I think in Amherst, our community can believe in, right? Finding that middle ground. And so number one, we kept going back to safety and well-being of our students and our staff. That's the top priority. Second is that school is the best place for our students. It's the best place for them to learn, but understanding that there has to be some remote distance learning options for folks that are not comfortable. And finally, that we were going to, whether you agree with it or not, we have to understand that we have guidelines as a public school system that we have to follow. And so all of our administrators, all the people that talk about this plan, we keep linking back to those three common beliefs. And so I'm going to give you kind of some brief what the plan is. Our schedule for elementary school is the biggest problem that we encountered when we got feedback was childcare. And so the thing that we worked hardest to do was to eliminate as the needs for childcare. And so we were able to come up with a plan where we could get all of our students into their elementary schools Monday through Thursday. We're going to take Friday. Friday's not off. It's the students will be at home. That will give teachers the opportunity to do some planning, some professional development, and then some deep cleaning. But we have two groups. We have to stagger the elementary students. So half of the students in the school will come as a group A at 8 o'clock, and they will stay till 2. And then the other half of that school will come at 9 o'clock, and they'll stay till 3 o'clock. And that stagger allows us to spread our students out, to space them out. And so we have them spread out all over the building now. And so we're making it where 2.5 hours of the day they're going to be with their homeroom teacher for math and literacy instruction. And then the other part of the day in those larger areas will be more of a hybrid learning type of environment where they'll use their Chromebooks for different things. They'll get recess, they'll get art, they'll get their PE, those kinds of things. And so that'll be 4 bus runs to get all of our students in for elementary school. And so that we felt really good that did mitigate a little bit of the childcare issue, but I'll come back to the childcare in a little bit. Our secondary students are grades 6 through 12. They are going to be on an A-B schedule. So on Monday and Wednesday, our A group will be in school, and then on Tuesday, Thursday, they'll be at home. So they'll have their learning environment at home. Friday, so B group will be at school on Tuesday and Thursday, and they'll be at home learning on Monday, Wednesday. Friday, we're going to reserve that day for students that need extra supports, whether that's academic support, whether that might be technology. that they might need to come in to access better Wi-Fi in our schools. And then we're going to use that time for some CTE, giving our CTE students some extra time, because many of those things are not conducive to at-home learning. And so those students will come in at 10 a.m. and they'll leave at 4. And I think maybe that might be one of those things where we might never be able to go back. If you can get high school students coming in at 10 a.m., I think they might enjoy that. But so those are the outlines of the schedule. I know that's fairly brief, but I wanted to get to some of the other elements of this plan, like the mitigation strategies. And so, what we've told our parents is the only option to be completely safe is to stay at home and take the fully online remote option, which we all offer, and we are offering. But when you come into the school, there's an element of risk. And I've tried to be very clear with our staff and our students that there's an element of risk when you walk into the building. But what we've tried to do is to put mitigation strategies in to reduce that risk as much as possible. And so clearly we are going to abide by the 6-foot social distancing. It will go to 3 feet on the bus, because the bus, if we do 6 feet on the bus, we'll never get any of our students into school. But once we get to that 3 feet on the bus, we are going to require masks for our students to ride the bus. In the building, we're encouraging masks, but if they can keep their 6-foot social distancing, we're not requiring that. But we are asking them every time they kind of break down that social distance barrier to put face coverings on. Our symptom screening, we are going to do, we're going to have parents do symptom screening at home, and to verify that their children don't have a temperature over 100 degrees, they don't have a sore throat, all of those symptoms that we're going to ask, and they're going to verify that. Once they're at school, we're going to have hand washing and sanitation, hand sanitizer stations everywhere. We're going to spend the first week teaching our students explicitly how to do all of these things. And for our high school students, they might not like that, but they're going to get it anyway. And then we're going to wipe down all the frequently used surfaces, and that's just going to, I think, happen all the time. And whether when students leave the classroom, desks are going to be wiped down. We're going to have to hire new more custodial help to make sure we can get through all of these things. And so those are the kind of the high level mitigation strategies. And then I guess the other thing the other two things I wanted to talk about, if I have time, was our technology issues. I think that's probably the number one hurdle that I have. We have set up our at-home learning in a way where, so for example, if you're an A student and you're going to be at home on Tuesday, but you're at school on Monday, the Monday lessons that you have with your teachers, you will get, you'll have the opportunity to download onto either a flash drive or their Chromebook all the work they'll need for at home on Tuesday, so they don't have to have Wi-Fi access at home. Now, it would certainly be better, but if they don't have it, we can accommodate that way. We are going to use Virtual Virginia. It's being provided to us for free this year by the state, and so our core classes will be on that management system, Virtual Virginia, and then our electives will use Google Classroom because Virtual Virginia doesn't carry all of our electives. We are currently working with a company called Lit Communities to help us build out a plan on how to get Wi-Fi access to all of our students using a wireless internet service provider. We would the school system would be the hub of that internet provider, and we're going to try to get that out to them sometime this fall. That's really where I'm hoping to use my CARES Act money. It's getting picked apart every day with all the other things that we have to spend our money on. And then finally, with childcare, we're going to provide childcare for our staff members, children. We think that's a huge deal because if we can't do that, we're going to have a hard time getting all of our teachers back in the building. And then we set up a community team of childcare providers to start to provide the options for our parents that that aren't teachers in our buildings. I think when I looked at your questions and it said, how can parents and employers be a part of the solution? I think one of the things that I keep coming back to is that employers need to understand that their employees are going to have a very varied schedules. There's going to be lots of times where they're going to be called away at a moment's notice because all of our schools are going to have to deal with not if we have an outbreak, or it's when. And so when this school gets shut down, that's going to impact parents. Obviously, then that's going to impact your employees. So we certainly ask for your patience and to work with those folks because they're already our parents are already in an untenable situation. You know, they're having to choose between whether or not they're going to put their child in a risky situation by coming back to school, whether I'm going back to work, whether I'm going to stay at home. And so I think that local businesses could help a lot by giving their parents some assurances that you know, they're going to be taken care of, because that's what we're trying to do for their children. I think that's probably 10 minutes. I'm sure I went over, but I'm going to stop there and turn it over to my colleagues.
I need to have a school bell to ring.
Yes.
Each administrator. I did not think I had enough to do that.
You have a mute function.
I do. I would do that to you though. Well, thank you, Dr. Arnold. And I would say, I would echo that for employers. We know this is a tough time, but it's a tough time for everybody. And if you've got great people and you want to keep them, you know, maybe have some COVID policies around remote work during this time so that they can take care of their kids. So, okay, Dr. Bennett.
Good morning, and thank you.
Appomattox County.
Yes. And I can save some time by just saying ditto to whatever Rob just said, because I think you'll find that most of our plans look very similar. And that's just because there's not so many ways that you can do school 6 feet apart. And so I think we all have kind of created a few nuances on those, and I won't repeat everything that he did, but I'll try to add to it. And just to kind of give you some background on how we went about it, we also had task force with our groups here in Appomattox. We did surveys for our staff. We did some high-level surveys of parents and staff to just see how comfortable they were with students coming back. So based on that, and based on other factors here that are unique to Appomattox, we decided, I came to the board on the 25th of June and said, this is kind of the continuum, everything from 100% virtual, where no one comes in our buildings, to we can open up full on without any restrictions. Now, some of that, the caveats are the governor has something to say about those in terms of the phases and what we can and can't do, or should or shouldn't do from a safety standpoint. So our goals in Appomattox came down to 3, basically. We wanted to return as many students as possible to the classrooms for in-person instruction as often as possible and as safely as possible. So just to hit the highlights of our plan, we are going to be running all of our classrooms at 50% capacity, 6 feet apart whenever possible. Like Rob, our pre-K through 5 students will attend 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. They will be with their teachers half day and with support personnel the other half. We divided our county into East and West, just geographically. And so the East group will come on Mondays and Tuesdays. This is for 6 through 12. They will come 2 days a week. East group comes on Monday and Tuesdays, and the West group will come on Thursdays and Fridays. And that was basically to make the most of our bus transportation and resources, as well as keeping families together. So our middle and high school will only have half of their students at a time, while our primary and elementary schools will have all of them. We realized that we would need to make some changes in schedules in order to have enough resources at primary, at pre-K through 5 to make that happen. So one of the things that we're doing is cohorting all students. And what that means is just keeping students with the same group of other students as much as possible. That limits exposure. But also at our high school, we're on a block schedule. And what we're doing is, instead of having students go to all 4 classes in a day, they're only going to 2. So they only change classes once. But that also frees up some of our staff to help at the primary and elementary school levels. Wednesday is dedicated for virtual learning. All of our students will have a virtual component. And Wednesday will be dedicated to that, as well as deeper cleaning for our buses when we alternate groupings of kids, and our schools. Our most vulnerable students, those students with special needs, those who need adaptive curriculum, the English language learners, those are also going to be coming 4 days a week, regardless of their age. And then, of course, as Rob said, there's a 100% online option for any parent in our community. We have a little over 20% of our parents who have decided they would use that option for 100% online. Back in March, when we had to stop school so abruptly, we realized that we were not prepared for an online option completely. So we've worked very hard since March to secure devices for every student. We have a complete one-to-one program now that we'll be able to roll out in a few weeks. And you know, about 80% of our parents say that they have internet, but the concern there is how reliable that internet is, how much data they have. We're pretty sure that a lot of that is on a cell phone, and you just can't do a whole lot of schoolwork on a cell phone. So we are also looking at using CARES money to purchase MiFis, and we are able to purchase some Wi-Fis that we put out into local churches for our summer school program. And that worked really well. So we're going to put those back out. And of course, all of our buildings are Wi-Fi accessible, even in the parking lots. So, as Rob also said, I think childcare was a big issue. So we tried to address that as much as possible by getting our pre-K through, our youngest students, pre-K through 5, into the building as much as possible. We are providing childcare for our workforce whenever they need it, because we need them there. And I think, as he has said, I think we're certainly concerned about our workforce. We're concerned about the health of our students and staff. And we are going to be very creative when it comes to substitutes, because they're not out there a lot, but we also don't want to introduce a lot of extra people into the school environments that we don't know if they are symptom free. So we're relying on parents to do symptom checking at home. We'll repeat that symptom checking when they get to school, but we want to really get the word out to parents that it really is up to them not to send their children to school when they're sick, and our staff needs to stay at home when they're sick. So we have contingency plans for contingency plans, but we realized yesterday our questions have questions. And so I often say, don't talk about it, be about it. And so we talked about it in a long time. Now we have to be about it. And that's where the rubber's hitting the road. So we appreciate all the patience of our parents and staff as we work out all the details.
Thank you, Dr. Bennett. We are getting some questions, just FYI. We will get to these when we finish the call or when we finish the formal presentation. So we're not ignoring the questions. We do see them. So just hang in there. Next, we have Dr. Schuch with Bedford County. So Dr. Schuch, the floor is yours.
Well, good morning, everyone. Christine, thank you for the invitation. Like Annette, I don't want to repeat things that Rob had said, and I also don't want to repeat things that Annette had said, I think one thing that is good is the 5 of us do collaborate periodically and also with other superintendents around the state, because it's very helpful to hear what each other are doing. Like both of them, we have put a high premium in this time, an even higher premium than normal in our communication. And so if anyone really cares about the details of the Bedford plan, I would ask you to go to our YouTube channel or our website or our Facebook page, because there are some more lengthy video presentations where folks really go over the nuts and bolts of what we're attempting to roll out here next month. But I guess I'll frame the discussion just by echoing some of their comments. I think it's all very simple in terms of our high level approach to this. We have this pandemic, we're all dealing with it in our personal lives and our professional lives. And we have these new health and safety precautions that we're all trying to understand as best we can and implement as best we can. And then that kind of pushes against what I believe as an educator, and I think we all do as educators, the need for children to be in school, if possible, and balancing those needs to the extent possible, and also to what my colleagues said, honoring where parents are with all of this, and trying to keep all of that in balance. So I think 2 things from our leadership approach to this that may be very different than what we've ever done before. One is that as a district, we've always operated under a more site-based leadership model. I really believe that under normal times, schools work best when our principals and our school leadership teams have a lot of autonomy with resources and programming, and they can understand the unique needs of their communities. And that tends to work really well. But as we got into this work, we quickly had to throw that out and say our entire school system needs to be kind of united into one plan. And so we had to kind of adjust to that. The other piece we've had to adjust to, and we're still adjusting, is early on, we determined that our normal planning processes don't help us a lot, because we are so accustomed to, and I've never done it any other way. This is my 27th year, I think, in education. And I've always dealt with annual planning processes where we kind of line up through annual budgets, through annual accreditation processes. We put our folks on annual contracts. Schools have school improvement plans that last a year. Teachers plan out a year and do a syllabus of their courses. Performance reviews are done annually. So that is kind of our mentality from a leadership and management standpoint. And where we find ourselves now is what we would better term an iterative design space. And what that means is what we plan today may not work tomorrow. And so everything I'm sharing with you, I preface with, and I have in every presentation with, this is how we kind of plan to start the year. But we need to be able to very quickly pivot to something else. So I wouldn't want any of you to think that what I'm about to share is what it's definitely going to look like 2-3 months in, because I just don't know. We have to get in there and try it. And that is a very different mentality for us as an institution. Like the others, we also put a high premium on reaching out to folks. We didn't feel like we had the skills or the knowledge to do all this on our own. So we did a number of focus groups very early on with a number of stakeholder groups. We also had task forces with about 150 people, and each of our task forces, there were 9 to start, we made sure we had at least one student, one parent on those task forces. We thought that perspective was important, along with teachers and other employee groups. Another thing we did with surveying that took quite a bit of effort was, instead of sending out a paper survey to get that one-way communication, we actually brought in about 50 of our teachers, and we attempted to call every household of a Bedford County public school student, and didn't reach them all, but in that way got the survey answers, but also got to have conversations with families about how things were going and what some of those needs are. So that has greatly influenced our planning. In terms of how we plan to deliver, I think what we're doing is very similar to what you heard from my two colleagues. I'll kind of share where we might be slightly different. We wanted to get as many children as we could back into school, those whose parents were willing to send them. And so we looked at all of our facilities, and what we've determined is that we can get up through 6th grade 5 days a week with slightly shortened days if we are willing to move kids out of buildings where they had traditionally been scheduled. So our elementary schools are going to house up through 3rd grade, as they typically have, and some of them will keep 4th grade. Again, each building is a different size and has a different population of learners that attend. But some of our 4th graders, along with all of our 5th graders and all of our 6th graders, will be served at our 3 middle schools. And those grade levels will all go, the plan is at this point, 5 days a week, again, with a slightly shortened day, probably about an hour shortened from what we have typically done. And then our 7 through 12 group will operate pretty similarly to what my colleagues shared. We will start in an AB format using Wednesdays as a flex day, similar to Appomattox. But one of the nuances that we feel like is important to build in is that all of our 7th through 12th graders are going to be assigned a learning coach. And the reason we're doing that is one of the things we heard in the spring was there was a huge disconnect when schools were closed, especially at the secondary level, where our children had 6, 7, 8 teachers, in addition to counselors and principals and just, you know, maybe 10 or 11 adults. And it was very difficult for them to really navigate that whole environment. And since our model is now blended, where these young people are going to come in roughly 2 days a week and be learning the rest remotely, we felt like having that single point of contact was important. So again, they'll each be assigned a learning coach, and that learning coach will be the primary conduit for the student and the family of all things related to school. Learning coaches are also going to work with students on understanding where they are as people, where they want to go in terms of maybe career aspirations, and possibly, most importantly, kind of where they are from a social emotional standpoint. We feel like in our traditional setup, too many of our children at the secondary level can go through school somewhat anonymously and not really be known by any one adult in the building. And so we're using this opportunity to kind of guarantee that that is in place. The students in 7 through 12 will only be enrolled in 3 classes in a semester, and we feel like we need to do fewer classes at a time, because that's another criticism we heard in the spring, that it was very difficult for kids to navigate 6, 7, or 8 classes in the spring and stay in contact with that many different teachers. And so on the days they come in, the 7 through 12 students will have some in-person instruction and some independent work. And a lot of that depends on the nature of the courses as well. Many of our career and technical education courses, many of our science courses with labs, some of our fine and performing arts, there really is very limited opportunities to do some of those activities remotely. And so we're going to put a priority on in-person instruction for that. And again, with having fewer teachers, the learning coaches will be able to help the students navigate the best use of their time when they are in school. I also want to say this, and I don't know if this will actually evolve the way we hope it does, but it is our hope and plan. So we'll start the kids coming in 2 days a week on a schedule, but the hope is once these learning coaches get to know these children and their parents and understand the work ethic and how much is being done reliably by the student, and also where their interests and passions lie, we really do believe that some of those young people will need to come in less than 2 days a week, and others will need to come in more. And over time, we'll be able to accommodate that with some communication, because obviously, if they all said they had to come in more frequently, we wouldn't be able to social distance and put all those safety protocols into place. We also have the 100% remote option. At this point, we're looking at about 20% from the families that have signed up for that. And we have decided, for better or worse, to decouple that remote learning from our base schools in the sense that We don't want to ask our teachers who are doing in-person or blended instruction to also be serving the 100% remote learners. And so we're going to have 100% learning team for Bedford County. And we'll be pulling teachers from our base staffing from the schools to go into that support. And again, with 20%, we're probably going to have, I would think, close to 2,000 if those numbers hold from what we're currently seeing. So a significant shift in terms of how we support those young people. We are working with Bedford County in a significant ways to bridge that home internet gap, as the others talked about. We are encouraged at what Bedford County is doing and also what many of our local internet providers are doing, and feel very good that even though we won't have 100% coverage, we'll have a lot better than what we had last spring. And even throughout the fall, we're working with that and also trying to work with those providers and the county to see if there's any way that we can make those internet options more affordable, especially for our families in poverty, because access is one piece of it, but there are quite large startup costs for a number of the new providers. And we feel like for some families, that might be a limitation. The other thing I'll mention briefly, because I know I'm over my time as well, is we are asking as many families as would volunteer to drive their children to and from school. And thankfully, many of them have stepped up, because without that, we would not be able to get the children who don't have that option to school, given the restrictions that Annette and Rob mentioned. So that's a lot, and I apologize for going a minute or two over, but I do appreciate the opportunity to share.
Hey, Doug, there are a couple Bedford County specific questions in the chat. So if you'll get to those, that'd be great, and we'll move on. Let's see. Okay. Dr. Johnson is next with Campbell County. So the floor is yours, Dr. Johnson.
Thank you, Christine. So good morning, everyone. It's nice to see you. It's a great opportunity to share what we're doing with the business community. I've been sitting here while my colleagues are talking, so I'm going to try to hit highlight some things that are really kind of unique to Campbell County. We too developed our plan using some guiding principles. We recognize that not only are we providing instruction to your students, but we're also important in the overall fabric of our community and the economy. We provide a service, a safe place for students to be so parents can work. So we know how important that is. And that was one of our guiding principles, was how many students can we safely, within the guidance, get into school every day. And that's a big piece of what we've been working on. Unlike our colleagues, for those of you who don't know, Campbell County is a large county. It's really spread out. We have 4 very different, unique geographical areas. So we almost had to create really 4 plans because around those guiding principles. So when our plan was adopted Monday night, it really was a framework, and it wasn't a lot of specifics. There were goals that we wanted to reach. But to give you an example, what we might be able to do at William Campbell High School, we will not be able to do at Brookville High School. What we might be able to do at Brook Neal Elementary School, which is get every student in every day, 4 days a week, we will not be able to do at Tomahawk Elementary School. Just the numbers just don't work with the size. So our plan varies depending on the school and in the area in which you live. We too are going to offer a complete virtual remote school. It's called the Campbell County Learning Academy. About 20% of our families have indicated they would be interested in signing on to that. And we have strategies in place where the internet, hopefully, even though it would be helpful, it's not absolutely necessary to take part in that. We've outfitted, for example, 10 buses with Wi-Fi that we will move around into the areas of the county that we know that do not have internet. I think one important piece that I think is probably true for all of us is, and I said this often Monday night, this is very fluid. It's changing. I mean, we're having discussions already about our plan and the guidance that we have since Monday night. So it's changing, and it very likely may change. And I think as Doug said, we're going to have to pivot at any moment back to remote learning. We're going to have flare-ups. We're going to have outbreaks in schools, and you're going to have, we may be shut down from anywhere from 2 to 5 days, and we are going to have staffing issues. I think just this morning you read in the news in regards to how this virus is impacting the students as opposed to adults. So we're really concerned about being able to staff our schools if we have an outbreak. And that's one of the big issues that we're having now in trying to get as many students as we can, especially at the elementary level, because we know those are the most vulnerable students developmentally. We want those students in, and they can't provide daycare on their own. Our secondary schools, for example, in the Brookville area, will be AB schedules, alternating, very similar to my colleagues. But again, if you're at William Campbell and you're in 6th through 11th grade, you may be in school every day. It just depends on in the school that you're in. So again, our plan is very unique to the geographical area that you might live in. It's still very fluid. We're working on it. Our larger schools are causing us the most issues now in trying to appropriately and safely get as many students in as we can. So other than that, I don't know that there's a lot of differences between how we developed our plan and our colleagues. But I'll yield the rest of my time maybe for questions that are specific to your members.
Thanks, Dr. Johnson. And yeah, I think what you said goes without saying, but everything's fluid, and what you say today could change tomorrow. And every school system will be transforming as soon as a case comes in, right? So patience is key, and flexibility is key. So, okay, so rounding out the house this morning is Dr. Edwards with Lynchburg City. So the floor is yours, Dr. Edwards.
Thank you, Christine, for inviting all of us, and good morning to everyone. Sometimes there's a benefit of going last, and then other times it's like you have to just say, like Annette said, ditto to much of what was said. But like my colleagues, we also started with a 60+ person task force to look at this. And one of the things that we were committed to do when we put our subcommittees together was to make sure that our subcommittees weren't facilitated by everyone at central office. And we were purposeful of our 9 committees. 3 were facilitated by principals, 2 were facilitated by assistant principals, 2 by teachers, 1 by an athletic trainer, and 1 by a supervisor. And we really wanted to make sure we stayed in touch with the folks at the school level who were working with the children day in and day out, that we had their input. We also, like my colleagues, did several surveys, most recently to both our parents and our staff specific. We did focus groups with the business community, the medical community, our students, our staff, and our parents and caregivers. We also did a YouTube live event where we answer questions on the spot. And as Doug said, much of our information is on our website. If you go to our website, you can get to all of our plans. I think our theme was lead with care, and we continue to feel that way about our students, our families, and our staff. And lead with caution. What we did not want to do was have what I'm going to term a beach effect and have everybody back at the same time, and then have to deal with any consequences of not being methodical, cautious, and very preventative as we could be. One of the questions you asked us was, what were our challenges? And even before COVID, one of the major challenges that we face in Lynchburg City Schools is transportation. And you've probably seen our buses parked everywhere with, we want drivers, we want drivers, we want drivers. We did not have enough drivers before COVID. That did not change since we've been in COVID. And as a matter of fact, I believe we have less drivers now, which is problematic when you're trying to get the kids to school. So that was one of the biggest challenges and remains a challenge for us in getting the kids to school. Like my colleagues, we are trying to put one student per on the bus, alternating aisle and window. That's about 3 feet apart, and it's mandatory that children have to wear masks or face coverings on the bus for us to do that. If we did not do that, we would find it very difficult to get the kids to school and have any type of program. So that's one of our biggest internal challenges. Our big external challenge for our families is childcare. And I know one of my staff members is on. We have been working with our community partners to have locations in communities that are off-site locations to assist with childcare. And we recognize that, you know, not every family can pay for childcare. So we're doing our best to make sure that with our community partners that we offer, you know, free childcare where we can, and that we as Lynchburg City provide staff that are at that site with our children as another level of oversight. Our plan is a little different. We do put a high value on having all of our kids back, and also it was real important from the beginning that we not limit the learning to SOL focused coursework. And on our committee, we had a good presence from our art and our music, drama folks. And we recognize for some of our kids, that is the reason that gets them out of bed and brings them back to school. So we wanted to make sure that we had a rich program that included everything, including our CTE, art and music. We had an extracurricular and athletics team, and part of that's already started, so I'll talk a little bit about that. But in our stepwise plan, and I call it stepwise, and I echo the comments of my colleagues that say, this is the current thinking with what we know, and flexibility is the word, and as we learn more and experience more, we can do more. But we have our children coming in pre-K through 5, starting August 24th, 2 days a week, coming in on an AA and then a BB day, with Mondays being the day that they're doing self-directed learning. So Tuesdays and Wednesdays, they will be with their teachers for a full 6-hour day. That's the first cohort. And then on Thursdays and Fridays, they will either be at home or at a learning center where we are going to have staff that will continue to connect with them. As Doug said, one of the things we did in the spring was have a family connect team, because we did recognize that certain families with multiple children, multiple teachers, there was just too much contact. So we tried to limit that to really get the needs of the family, and we will continue to do that as we move forward. Our 6th through 12th grade students will be online, completely online for the first 2 weeks, and then coming in on September 8th for 2 days a week, same schedule, an AA day, and then the second cohort will come in on the BB days, and Mondays being the days that our staff will be doing both the deep cleaning of the building. We'll have some family connect for our students during that time. And our approach, you know, and I do feel strongly I want my kids all back in school, but I feel equally strongly that I want them all back in school safely. And we want to make sure that we can manage a safe environment, not only for our kids, but as we begin planning, we started to hear more and more from our teachers, our staff members, our educators, just in keeping them as safe as possible, and also the families that they go back home to. Childcare for our staff was really important, so we are going to offer that for our staff. I think we had over, close to probably 200 students, 200 children of staff members who may need to come to Lynchburg City Schools on the days that they are not in school, so that our staff can work with our students. We want to run our 100% virtual program and our blended program side by side, because we recognize that we are in a fluid dynamic, and at any time a kid may need to go completely virtual, or vice versa, start completely virtual and then be up for in-person learning. So what we didn't want to have is have two separate things, kids on a 100% virtual online and then come to the schools and the curriculum not match. So we are trying to do that side by side, recognizing that, similar to what Doug said, if our teachers are teaching kids Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and then the other cohort on Thursdays and Fridays, it's really going to be difficult for that same teacher to be available for students for complete virtual during that same time. So we are looking at, as much as possible, having teachers who are dedicated to that. But we recognize that as you get up to the secondary level and you start with very specific coursework, that might be a little bit more challenging to do. I say our schedule's flexible. Our transportation director right now is busily working to work out the details of our two-day. We also have schools of innovation. We have a year-round school. We have the Goal Center and just some other things that we wanted to make sure that we still offer those opportunities to our families, and that does impact transportation as well. Our model is similar to Annette. We use a geography model. We like to be somewhat family friendly, divided our town into pretty much north and south, and try to make it such that a parent or a caregiver who has children in multiple buildings, at least those children will be going to school on the same days. And then if you have older students who are available to watch your younger children, that they would be home on the same days. Also offering the option for them to participate in our learning committees. In terms of athletics and extracurricular, that was important to us. We did in our health mitigation plan, which was submitted, start back with having children on site, doing some conditioning for the summer, following VHSL guidelines, but also with some strong, stringent mitigation procedures. We are cleaning our buses in between dropping children off. I think all of us have deep cleaning, but I don't want the community to think that during the week that we don't have that deep cleaning day. We are still deep cleaning in between the activities for kids. So our students who came back to participate in the sports and extracurricular activities, they're being screened. We're asking parents to help us with the screening. Part of our CARES Act, we wanted to purchase, similar to what we saw at the Jameson Y, the temperature screening devices so that kids can get into the building rather quickly without forming lines, staff as well. We do have protocols for if someone is illustrating symptoms of, COVID symptoms, what to do, how to put them, I don't like the term isolation room, but obviously we need to separate them. Our goal is to minimize contact. Another reason why we're taking a stepwise approach to bringing our students in. And if we do, we practice contact tracing alongside of the VDH, and we have protocols that we're sharing with our staff. Everyone will be trained on that, including our students and our families. The wearing of face coverings was a big topic last night at our board meeting. I shared with you that it was mandatory for the bus. And after our board meeting last night and just in conversations with our teachers, even with social distancing 6 feet apart, they feel really strongly that, those three things, face covering, social distancing, and hand washing and good protocols are important, that we're actually looking to evaluate whether or not students need to wear masks in classes, in schools, with the social distancing in place to keep everyone safe. So as I said, the plan is very, very fluid. That was not in our health mitigation plan when we submitted it a couple weeks ago, but was the topic of discussion last night. We want to encourage our parents and our families, if you're sick, stay home. If you've tested positive, obviously self-quarantine. If you've been around someone who tested positive, self-quarantine. So we need to be flexible with our attendance. We need to be flexible with how we work with staff. We need to use all options when we can to allow our staff to telework, telecommute where it's possible, or have other options for them, such that we don't penalize, and we don't want our staff or our families to feel like They can't be truthful and tell us that, hey, we need to stay home for those 14 days without it being penalty. And that's another reason why we want our online program to run somewhat parallel with our in-person, because if a child does test positive or is in a position where he or she must self-quarantine, if they're home, they can still participate in our 100% virtual online learning, hopefully without missing a beat. And we do recognize that all folks who test positive are not necessarily showing signs, so that the quarantine is important, but the learning can go on and the teleworking can still go on where possible. And I just want to stress again that, although we're doing a start 2 weeks with the elementary in 2 days a week, and then the following 2 weeks in September, bring in the high school, we are really looking at our plan over multiple periods of time. And the goal is to open it up to really get our students back in-person learning as much as we possibly can, while keeping a safe environment and offering them the opportunity to participate in safe sports, extracurricular activities, so that our kids feel as normal as they can feel during this COVID time. And our adults feel safe in providing that environment. And I'm probably over my time too.
That's okay. That's okay. Thank you, Dr. Edwards. We're actually tracking really good on time. We have had some questions. If there are specific questions to each school district, I've tried to forward those to specific administrators. Dr. Edwards, there is a question about LCS in the chat box, so look at that if you don't mind.
Yes.
Here's one for everyone, all the administrators. What's the policy on parents entering schools? So who would like to start that? And if all the other districts have a similar response, you can just thumbs up or echo that.
I'll take that one from Appomattox. We are limiting visitation in schools, but we are not limiting parents coming into school if they need to come in for a reason. We do have some protocols set up. First of all, they'll need to wear a face covering. Those signs will be on the board, on the doors. We have plexiglass that is being installed in our office areas so that we can keep everyone safe. And we also have bins, either depositories outside of the building if they just need to drop something off for their child and want to do that without coming in the building. We've set up some ways that they can do that. We are not allowing lunch visitation or classroom visitation. They would be able to come in the building to do any business they need to do or to pick up a child, but we're not going to be able to allow them to just go throughout the building as they probably were able to do before.
Anybody have anything different or additions they want to add to that? Okay. There was a question about extracurricular programs. I think that's been addressed by a couple of the school systems, band, theater. I mean, I think what I've heard is you are trying to allow that to the extent possible. Obviously, BHSL is coming down with some decisions that are going to limit extracurricular. But yeah, I would say that I think you guys have done a pretty good job of addressing and offering.
Christine?
Yeah,
can I speak to that? One of the things I think that's important to note is that even if there are not like a competition season, we feel like it's important for our coaches to continue to work with our students, our athletes, our actors and those kinds of things, because it helps build that sense of normalcy back for those students and gives them that community. And so, it was just interesting that one of those questions was asked about theater. I know our theater director has been working with our high school principal. They're looking at doing some sort of production that's outside, that we would do something kind of in a setting that's we can all be out there and it's a lot of social distancing going on. But I just think it's really important regardless of what the high school league says about competition season.
That's good. Here's a question specific to Amherst and Lynchburg City. So Appomattox, Bedford, and Campbell, you guys have said that about 20% of your students are doing virtual learning. Amherst and the city, do you have a handle on what percentage?
Ours is 18%, is where we've landed. So that's about in line with everyone else.
Okay.
We did a survey a while ago when we first entered into this mix, and felt like over the last couple weeks that it would be important for us to survey our families again, particularly after we received, some concerns with Myrtle Beach and hotspots, and some families may have changed their mind about what they wanted several weeks ago. So we just did a survey a couple days ago, and I hope to have that data very soon.
One question.
Christine, can I add to that? And we're surveying again this week as well. Now that our plan or framework is out there for people to see, we're redoing our survey now and asking people more to commit to the online academy and to give us information about transportation as well.
That's good. Let's see. Question about, this is more for teacher related, teachers that are on 180-day contract, if they go less than 180 days, does their contract remain the same and they still get their compensation for 180 days?
So our teachers are still working their entire contract. And I think one of the things that's really important, and Annette may have said it, when it happened in March, we weren't prepared to go completely 100% virtual. So our teachers are due back on August 4th. And that is the first thing that that's one of the first things that we're going to work with them on, in terms of making sure that they're comfortable, that they have the tools necessary. And what we did in the spring, what we do in the fall is going to look very different than what we did in the spring. We had a lot of choice boards, and we didn't count the work for credit for grades. We counted for credit, but not for grading. And there wasn't as much face-to-face virtual contact, I should say, with our staff. And that's what our families could look forward to being different this fall, in that, we are going to have a lot more for our virtual program, direct teacher contact.
And Christine, teacher contracts by code have to be 200 days. And I can assure you that if we have situations where school is closed, our teachers are going to be working hard, probably working harder than they are now, doing online, remote learning 2 days a week, in person 2 days a week with different groups. So, but they do have to be 200-day contracts.
And it's been related to us that school will be in session this year. There will not be a shutdown. So whether they're in the building or remote, they're going to be in school this year. And so our teachers are going to be working all year.
Yeah, I have no doubt of that. Okay, another question, and this is for everybody, if the governor decides to go backwards with phases for the state, are there any precautionary plans in place for continued learning without hiccups? And of course, we're going to remind everyone of the word fluid. Anybody take that, Dr. Johnson?
Yeah, I was going to say, without hiccups, I don't know if any of us can guarantee that can happen, but we all, when we submit our plans to the Department of Education, part of that plan has to be what would happen if we went backwards into remote learning. So we all have to present plans to the state as if we were to get a call one day and had to immediately go to remote opening. It's like Rob said, we're not going to close again. We may go in and out of different phases, but school and learning will be expected to continue throughout the year. It just may be in a different model.
Yeah, and I would just say, make sure for each of you that are on the call that you're keeping up with the websites at each of the school jurisdictions for those fluid plans that change. Here's a question. Even though there probably will not be a football season this fall, practice will still continue for student. If a child goes 100% virtual for learning, will they be allowed to practice? Is there a rule with BHSL that the child has to be in school for at least 2 hours to be able to attend practice? And then the disclaimer is the student is specifically in Appomattox. So you may want to take that one, Dr. Bennett. I'm sure somebody else has that question though.
Sure. Right. So we are allowing our students who are participating virtually to participate in extracurricular activity. VHSL has had rules about students' enrollment in courses, and of course our kids would have to be enrolled in courses, but even if those if they participate in those virtually, we are going to allow our students to participate in extracurricular. Of course, they have to be active and engaged and in good standing in those courses, regardless of how they participate, whether it's in person or online. But we're creating plans to make sure, much like Doug was talking about, having people very much connected to those students, because that's a big fear of ours, is that we would lose a connection with students. And just because a parent has signed up and thinks that's the best option for them, sometimes those plans don't work out and parents aren't able to keep their students as engaged or active or even accountable. And so we feel like that's a part of the program that we're going to need to ensure and make sure there's accountability. So yes, as long as that student is in good standing in any program, whether it's in person or online, we do want to keep a connection with them, and part of that would be through extracurricular.
It's interesting that question, because one of the things that when the original concept, parents start asking that question, the first thing in my mind was, well, if you don't want your child in school for safety reasons,
right,
in the world would you want them participating in an activity? But in having conversations with my families, a lot of them have told us that, we are going to keep our children home because we have resources, we have good internet, I'm at home, like a parent is at home full time, and we want to provide you guys some space. And I hadn't even thought that was going to happen. So that is just one of those things that was brought to my attention that I didn't realize was happening. So
yeah. Another question, thinking of sports and again outside activities. Is there a plan for children to be outside in large open spaces for fun and socialization? And a follow-up question to that. Can parents volunteer to help with an outside plan if needed for more supervision? Anybody want to take a stab at that?
Take a stab at that one. We do have plans for our kids to be outside as much as possible. In our health mitigation plan, we put in 10 feet for outside activities, recognizing that, they'll be running, especially the young ones, running, screaming, jumping, and doing things that we want our kids to do because that's just what kids do. And we were toying with the parent volunteer. It was very tough. And I think initially, again, being fluid and flexible, we were trying to just keep our cohort of kids with their teacher and not introduce parent volunteers at this point to see how it goes first. But we said we would start having more volunteers later in phase 3 and definitely in phase 4 or after phase 3, whatever that's called.
Okay.
I have to say, I think with any volunteers that we have, and we may need them, they're going to have to go through some training and be very aware that we're going to train and we're going to enforce anything that we have put in our plans to mitigate students getting sick or staff getting sick. So if we use volunteers and need to use them and are able to and have them, they just need to understand that there's going to be some very strict rules that they're going to need to know about and need to follow.
Okay. Anybody else want to comment on that one before I move to, it looks like maybe our final question? Oh, and that one's already been answered. So by someone else on the call. Thank you, Susan Cash, for answering the STEM Academy question. So if you got kids in STEM Academy, make sure you see that. Okay. Couple final announcements. First of all, thank you, school administrators. I know you have many sleepless nights, or maybe you're just so exhausted you have no trouble sleeping, but it's shorter time to sleep. Couple things I'll mention. As leaders in the business community, you guys are talking to parents, you're talking to employees that are frustrated, that are stressed. here's something to think about and to encourage your employees and your parents to think about as they're communicating. How would you want to receive this concern if it were you? Because these administrators, these teachers, these principals are getting thousands of questions. And think about how you can communicate those in a way to really get the best response and to help those that are fielding all of those questions. It's a stressful time for everyone. The other thing, this has been my mantra, I have it on my workstation because plans are fluid and things are changed. And I think I sent this to Dr. Edwards a couple weeks ago, but I'm going to leave you with this quote and then I'll do some final announcements. When nothing is certain, everything is possible. And, instead of thinking about all the challenges and all the complications, what opportunities does this afford us? We've certainly learned that we can work virtually, right? We've certainly been thrust into telemedicine when people thought that was a foreign concept. And we've now proven that that is possible. So when nothing is certain, everything is possible. So in your industries, as you're navigating these challenges, think about what is possible during all this. We will get through this together as a community, and we'll do it by working together and collaborating. Couple final things that I want to remind everyone about. If you were on this call, and I'm going to read these specifically, there were a couple folks on the call that until we know who you are, you won't get your gift cards because your name is not descriptive on your Zoom profile. So SCHLBA1, we don't know who you are. DK, we don't know who you are. And A234941. If you want a gift card, we need to hear from you. We need to know who you are. Otherwise, no gift card for you. Again, in the chat in the very beginning, we put upcoming events. Please make sure you go to our website for those. Let's see if there's anything else I need to announce before we log off. I do want to thank our sponsors again. I know Allison with Kroger, you hopped on after I already thanked you, but we are so thankful for you and your gift card partnership that is giving our members some gift cards that joined with us this morning. Want to thank Liberty, Property One, and First National Bank and Member One for your partnership this morning. Everyone, I end all my calls with this: stay well, wear your mask, and work together. We'll talk to you guys later. Have a wonderful, blessed day.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye, Christine. Great job.
See you guys.
Great job, Christine.